Hi, welcome to the Football Phoenix channel. Today I want to talk about managers, really, um, their role, the expectations, longevity, um, fans' expectations of managers, managers' expectations of themselves, etc., etc., that kind of stuff. So it just seems, um, as we all know, football. Certainly today's modern football, the pressure is very, very high, certainly on managers, chairmen, owners, fans, um, the media, social media, anyone and everyone. Um, Obviously, years ago, it wasn't quite the same, but obviously, the expectations were still high among supporters and chairmen and directors, um, what have you. I think the thing with me, it just seems that everyone's just a little bit too impatient. Um, I know it's an old cliche. Years ago, it took Alex Ferguson 3 or 4 seasons to sort of get 3 or 4 seasons to get to get Manchester United where he wanted them. I think they won the FA Cup in 1990. He became the manager in November 1986, succeeding Ron Atkinson, um, and I think they finished 11th at the end of the season. Pretty poor, very poor. Worst worst position for many years since the 70s, I believe. Um, and then the following season, he had a pre-season. Following season, he got them, and he bought Brian McClair and Viv Anderson, two signings, two very good signings. Especially McClair from Celtic was banging in goals left, right, and centre. And from 11th, they ended up at the end of the season second behind Liverpool. Fantastic season, best season I've had in a while. To finish second, yeah, I believe. Um, so yeah, so and then I think they finished 11th, 89 and 13th 1990. But in 1990 they won the FA Cup, and then after that, beating Crystal Palace in a replay, Lee Martin. Um, and then they just went on 91, 92, 93, when they won the league, Premier League for the first time in 26 years, 94, the double, so on and so on, till Fergie retired, really. I think at one point, Fergie won, I think, four league championships on the spin. I could be mistaken, but I think it was four. Um, and he won the double two or three times, the treble, obviously, in 1999, in Barcelona against Bayern Munich. So absolutely incredible, and he's an absolute living legend. And managers should be living legends, be it Shankly at Liverpool, Paisley at Liverpool, Clough at Forest and Derby, Don Revie at Leeds, Bill Nicholson at Tottenham, all the things he won, Harry Catterick at Everton, um, Ron Saunders at Aston Villa, Bobby Robson, Sir Alf Ramsey at Ipswich, both incredible managers. A smaller club like Ipswich, Herbert Chapman at Arsenal, who really built that club in the 30s, and then sadly died. And I think other managers took on that mantle till probably the 50s, into the 50s, and then they faded off the scene a bit, but they were still winning leagues after Chapman had died. So he created a legacy, Herbert Chapman at Arsenal, in the 20s, late 20s into the 30s. I think it was George Allison became the manager, and then Tom Whitaker became the manager after that, up until about the mid 50s. So from 1930 to the mid 50s, Arsenal were winning leagues, cups, and doing well. So yeah, he created a dynasty. Shankly also created a dynasty at Liverpool. Started came in 1959 and left. Shock resignation in 1974, and Bob Paisley took over. People think, how can he take on what Shankly did and even equal it? But he didn't just but he didn't just equal it. He went on and probably won 3 times as many trophies as Shanks did, and obviously Shanks was an absolute legend. But Paisley just kept winning 3 European Cups, I think 6 league championships, 2 or 3 league cups, UEFA Cups, and you name it, he won it. And obviously Liverpool had a dynasty from the 60s probably to the early 90s when Dalglish left. Souness took over, and then they really went downhill. He won an FA Cup, Souness, but he had a lot of injuries, but his buys were terrible. And then he left. And then Liverpool had managers Roy Evans and Houllier and what's his name? Rafa Benitez, that's right. Brendan Rodgers, whoever. And obviously then Jurgen Klopp came and he created what they've got now, really, which is a successful team. It took him a season or a couple of seasons really to get going, Jurgen Klopp, if I remember. And but yeah, he won the league, he won the European Cup, Champions League. He got to, I believe, 3 other finals, two finals, maybe a Europa League final as well. I could be mistaken. FA Cups, League Cups, and I think 3 times Klopp finished. Any other year he would have won the league, but he finished second, I think, 3 times. Apart from Manchester City, who were absolutely incredible, more incredible than what Liverpool were on those seasons. Klopp would have won, I think, 2, about another 3 more leagues, I believe. But yeah, so Klopp again, another modern great manager. But the point is, it just seems everyone wants just a quick fix. I mean, like the guy at Southampton. Southampton, good club. I'm a Brighton fan. They're a well-run club on the south coast. Like Brighton, got decent, solid support, and have been in the top league since the 60s. Since I believe the late 60s, and then they went down, and then I think Laurie McMenemy took over. They won the FA Cup, I believe, in the 2nd division in, I think, 76. And then they got promoted a couple of years later, and then they stayed, I think, in the top flight till 2005. And then they went down into the 3rd tier, and then they went up, and then they got promoted to the Premier League, and then they were there for quite a long time and doing well, finishing 7th, I think 8th. Was it 6th? I'm not sure. Got to a cup final or a semi-final in that time, and they've done brilliantly. Southampton as a club have done brilliantly. They've never won the league like Portsmouth, but who've done it twice actually, in the late 40s, early 50s, in successive years. But Southampton in the 1980s got quite close, certainly around the top 6, top 8. I think one year they finished 2nd, and finished, I think, 5th, maybe the season after, and I think got to some FA Cup semi-finals again under Laurie McMenemy. So as a smaller, and at the time I think they had Kevin Keegan, Peter Shilton, Mark Wright, Danny Wallace, Mick Shannon, Alan Ball, Charlie George, just legendary players, obviously Mick Mills, I remember, and various other ones. Steve Moran was a young striker. Danny Wallace, good young player. Mark Wright, good young centre half at the time. as I remember, and Mark Dennis, a real hard man. So as a club, they did absolutely fantastically for probably 7, 8 years, and then their glory years were fading, and they just sort of more or less kind of stayed up most years. They might have finished mid-table here and there, and then by that time, Matt Le Tissier was just absolutely fantastic, banging in the goals left, right, and centre. Rodney Wallace, too, and plus other players. Yeah, but Southampton's kind of real glory days were probably gone by the time Lauren McManamy left in the mid-ish 80s, maybe. But yes, Southampton still hang on in the top flight till 2005. And then they went down. I think Harry Redknapp, who walked out of Portsmouth, I think at the time, to manage Southampton. Yeah, very controversial that. But that's football. And then since then, as I say, Southampton have done pretty well. They've gone down, gone up, and had many years in the Premier League as well. So this guy they got now, Russell Martin, he's under a lot of pressure. It seems he got them promoted last season through the in the playoff final against Leeds, and obviously, I mean, that top 3 or 4 last year was absolutely fantastic. You had Leicester, and you had Southampton, or you had Leeds. Round about that top 3, 4. Who was the other team? Who was the other team? Ipswich, who came up from the 3rd tier league below, and then just went up and then up again. Absolutely incredible Ipswich, absolutely fantastic. So yeah, Russell Martin's under pressure now. Southampton will say that, maybe he's a bit out of his depth, a bit like the guy they had previously, Jones, Luton manager Jones, who's now at Charlton. They said that Jones was out of his depth and his tactics were very naive and poor or boring or whatever. And I think they're saying something similar about Martin. He's a bit predictable. He's a bit too stubborn. He won't change his tactics. Maybe he will, maybe he won't. It's a long old season. But again, the expectations of Southampton is that, they should stay in the top flight for 5, 6, 7, 8 years, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, like they have done in previous times. Because they've got a good history, Southampton, good modern history. Last 50 years, very, very good, for a club of average size. But so it leads me to say, what I'm trying to say is, it leads me to say, obviously managers now, they've got to work with these sporting directors of football, whatever name they're called. The manager and the sporting director and the whole structure of recruitment has got to be spot on, and the relationship has got to be spot on. And if it's not, then there's going to be cracks, and you're going to see that. The media are going to see that. I suppose the fans will see that, and the manager will come out in press conferences and after the match at games and here and there, and not talk like he would normally talk, in a confident way when things are going well, when he's happy and the club's doing well and the fans are happy. The managers will come out and basically talk gobbledygook. Maybe people think that I speak gobbledygook, but whatever. But yeah, the managers do speak a lot of gobbledygook. They say this, they say that. I mean, ex-Brighton manager Potter at Chelsea, he came out with some absolute crap when he was at Chelsea, talking about a can. Is this can actually standing up? He was saying to the press, and because he was under pressure, and because he wasn't in perhaps his comfort zone, maybe like he was at Brighton, where there's obviously a lot less pressure, he came out with some crap. and managers do come out with a lot of crap. Sean Dyche at Everton, he's another one under a lot of pressure. But I'll come on to him a little bit later. But I want to talk about Martin. I want to talk about Russell Martin. So yeah, he's just coming out with a lot of bizarre things, isn't he? I mean, from what I've seen, what I've read, he doesn't look. Is he a man on the edge? That's what they say. When you're on the edge, you come out with some absolute crap. So, and if Southampton do dispense with his services, I mean, you've got to give him about 14, 15 games. Okay, I think the idea is if he loses his next game, and there's this international break, that's the best time to shove him to one side. But after what, 8 games, is that it? 7 games, is it? By then, that's way too early to see what anyone can do. I believe, anyway. That's just way too early. You've got to give a manager at least 14, 15 games of one season. 15 games, and if they're in the bottom 3 or right down there, maybe make a ruthless decision. But only after maybe 15 games. That's just my opinion, anyway. And if he does go, who's going to take over? If you're going to have a team struggling down there, who are you going to attract? Someone supposedly of similar ilk, and then you're stuck in a rut. Oh, we've got him to take over, but he's no improvement on the previous guy. They will say, the media will say, the fans might say, anyone might say, like Nathan Jones took over from the guy he took over from, and he did even worse because the fans and the media didn't like the previous guy. Oh, he's got to go. I'm trying to think who that was now. He was there a while, and he actually did quite a reasonable job. And then Nathan Jones took over, and it was an absolute disaster. Like, just well out of his depth. I mean, I would agree, he was out of his depth. And the tactics weren't they weren't right for the Premier League. He was out of his depth. But anyway, that's enough of that. So, Southampton, I think the board, the people running the club, the fans, the local media, the mainstream media, you've got to give this guy a bit of time, okay? If after 15 games they're down the toilet, then maybe you need to pull the chain. But, we'll see. So, yeah, coming back to other managers. So the point I'm trying to make is managers, in my opinion, they're the glue. If you've got a great one, they'll build your club and make your club great. Alan Muller at Brighton from 1976 to 1981, years ago, I know, but he put Brighton on the map. They got promoted from the 3rd division into the 2nd division into the 1st division, and then stayed there for 2 years, and then he resigned over various things, selling players and buying players, and the chairman was getting too hands-on, and so Muller quit. And then after 5 very good years, Brighton was a club thriving, big crowds, everything, good football, some very good players. Obviously, they sold a lot of them to make money, which is fair enough, to other bigger clubs. And then Brighton, obviously, the next 2 or 3 seasons sort of declined, but did get to an FA Cup final in 1983. And then, as Brighton fans, we know what happened after that. It was a slow decline back down to the depths of the 4th division, and nearly went out of business. And then that sell the Goldstone and play at Gillingham and play at Withdean, and then the rebuild started slowly but surely, and things started to take shape, and the rest is history. That's boring. We all know that. So I won't waffle on about bloody Brighton, even though I love them to bits. What I'm saying is, the managers need some sort of power to wield their magic, to do what they need to do, make them comfortable, make the club. If the club's got potential, make it great. Don't. What they don't want is interference. But that's 50 years ago, 60 years ago, 30 years ago, 40 years ago. Look at Aston Villa with Unai Emery, replaced Steven Gerrard, who was absolutely bloody hopeless. Seriously. I believe, from what I've been told and what I've seen and what I've heard. And Unai Emery's come in with similar players, added one or two here and there. In his first, when he came in halfway through the season, a couple of years back, and they couldn't stop winning, and a few draws, finished 7th. And then the following season, they finished 4th. I got to the semi-final of the European Conference League, whatever it's called, I forget now. And now they've just beaten Bayern Munich the other night. Absolutely incredible. And good luck to them. Great club, good club. And, they've made a wise decision. And see what they can do this season, next season, and the seasons after. Can they win something? Can they improve on that? Can they improve on 4th? Can they go deep in Champions League? Can they, obviously, can they win a trophy really? And can they challenge the league? Can they win the FA Cup? Any cup? So I'll be interested to see how they get on in the coming years. So that's a good appointment. They've got a guy called Monchi, who's like the director, who's a recruitment guy, does very, 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 very well. It seems at the moment. He had a very good record at Sevilla, where they worked together. But he went to Roma and didn't do very well at Roma, this guy called Monchi. I don't know too much about it. But he's gone to Villa, and they seem to be picking up some players here and selling a few here and doing pretty well, doing very well, obviously. So we'll see where that goes in the next few years. If it can be sustained or even go higher and higher and better, we'll see. But sometimes you get these directors of football, sporting directors, and if they're not in line with the manager or the chief coach or the head coach, as they're now called, then it's not going to work, is it? And then you got these owners that come across the sea every so often. They pop their head through the door. It's. I think it can work. In Europe, it's worked for years, but it's got to be properly done. Obviously, here we've got a culture of old school managers. Well, did have of old school managers, good old school managers as well, and some bloody hopeless old school managers that didn't want to learn, that didn't want to progress, that didn't want to, didn't have any thirst for any more knowledge, didn't want to better themselves, and still had 1980s, 1990s tactics, what I would call meat, potato and 2 veg, which is good, strong, solid. Get it up the pitch. Come on, lads, let's go for a beer. Come on, lads, let's start running. Come on, lads, let's, it's all a bit, come on, lads, beep, beep, fuck, beep, bleep, come on, lads, beep, beep. Peter Reid, Steve Bruce, Barry Fry, Neil Warnock. And the tactics are a bit, Tony Pulis are a bit, Mick McCarthy, and many, many more. Some very good managers there up to a point. But sometimes tactically, at the highest level, in modern terms, I think a lot of those managers have had their day, or obviously they've had their day, even though one or two come out the woodwork and still try and get another job. to show their experience sort of thing, which is good, well and good. Steve Bruce gone to Blackpool, and they're doing very well, But at the highest level, like a Bruce at Newcastle, even though he did all right, excuse me, sorry, even though he did all right up to a point in league placings, the football was turgid, and he was battling against the media. Mike Ashley wanted to sell, the fans weren't having him. Sunderland connections, Manchester United connections, probably more importantly, and it never really worked out for him. They're as close to going down as they were to finishing mid-table. They were more close to going down than they were really to mid-table. Sometimes Newcastle under Bruce were like bottom 3, 4, 5, and they didn't, and won once in 20 games. And then he put on he would get a few wins, a little bit of a run, and then end up finishing 12th or 13th. I think that's how it was, but yeah. And then the following season, I don't think he was allowed to spend any money. And then there was an ownership, Saudis took over, Bruce, first 9 games, couldn't win. Then he was out the door when the owners came, out the door. Eddie Howe comes in, again, like Unai Emery, breezes beautiful, beautiful fresh air into the club, and on the pitch and with the existing players, he does an incredible job. And that's his fantastic coaching, Eddie Howe. Like Unai Emery, coached those players to really show what they're worth. And all credit to him. And Newcastle, 2 or 3 seasons, 3 seasons later, 4 seasons later, whatever it is, and they're still doing well, still doing very well. They're round about the top 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Even on a bad day, even on a bad season, last year when they lost a lot of away games, they finished 7th, just missed out on Europe. And here they've had a good start, even though the football hasn't been great. From what people tell me, Newcastle, they're, I think in the top 6 of the league. I could be wrong, but they've had a decent start. So you've got a lot of new managers. You've got the guy at Liverpool. What's his name? Arnie Slot. Is it Slot? Something like that. A Dutchman. He speaks very good. Speaks very well. You've got the guy. Guy at Chelsea, who was at Leicester. After a bit of a slow start, he's doing okay. Obviously, the jury's still out on him. Obviously, Russell Martin at Southampton, and various other managers. And obviously, the one I want to talk about is Sean Dyche. Now, Everton, the last 3 or 4 seasons, have been in a right mess. Financially, the ownership situation, the board, Moshiri took over 8 years ago, put a lot of money in, but there was no real structure. Spending money left, right and centre on past it players, ageing players, or players that just didn't do it. They built up a whole lot of debt. And Ancelotti came in. I think he's got them 10th, 12th with lockdown period. He didn't set the world alight. And then he sneakily did a runner to Real Madrid. Well, who wouldn't? Obviously, Real Madrid. You're not going to turn that down, are you? But he didn't do a great job at Everton, I believe. People can sort of debate that with me, but I thought, really? You're supposed to be a superstar manager and you get Everton 10th and 12th, or whatever he got them. Poor. And then he goes and wins the European Cup with Real Madrid last season. And anything else that he's won. And everything else he's won at Milan and Roma. Sorry, excuse me. And all the other clubs he's been at. Chelsea, the double. Yeah, the double, I believe, yeah. Fantastic manager. But at Everton, did do particularly well, I believe. So after that, Moshiri wanted to get his own man in. He was the owner. Bill Kenwright was still technically the chairman, and he wanted Rafa Benitez. Ex-Liverpool manager, ex-Newcastle manager, Valencia manager, Napoli manager, Inter Milan manager, and others. Very good manager, done a great job most places he's been at. Brilliant job. Won Liverpool the European Cup, Champions League, nearly won in the league, various cups. Valencia won the league twice with Valencia, Rafa Benitez. UEFA Cup, fantastic manager. And I think he won, the Europa League, the Europa League at Chelsea. They hated him at Chelsea. But I think he won, I think he won the Europa League at Chelsea. And then he left at the end of that season because he just wasn't wanted. And it's the same scenario at Everton. He wasn't wanted. The fans didn't want him. Probably a lot of the local media, who are Everton persuasion, didn't want him. Maybe the Liverpool local media from Liverpool persuasion might thought differently. But obviously you have journalists that cover Everton and maybe support them and etc. etc. And they were saying right from day one it was a mistake. And it proved out to be. He had a few good results early in the campaign, and then after that, first 7, 8, 9 results, just went down flying, faster than Eddie the Eagle, and dropped. In the end, results were so bad. He was under so much pressure from the fans and some of the media, or a lot of the media, that he was sacked. I suppose he took it on the chin, and he was sacked. And he was out the door. So then, who do they get in? So they're obviously in a poor position. They need to stay up. So they get Frank Lampard in. Hasn't had much experience. Did a decent job at Derby, a decent job at Chelsea, here and there, but he was sacked from Chelsea, and then takes over the Everton job. It was hard going, but he got some wins under his belt, and I think last game of the season they stayed up. Everyone on the pitch, and I think the Everton fans did quite like Frank Lampard. He had a bit of a rapport with them, and he spoke very favourably about the Everton fans and the area when he was there in the media and what have you. So I think they had quite a good rapport, the Everton fans, with Frank Lampard. And then following season, they had some terrible results from the start till about December, January. I think they played Bournemouth twice in the league and in the cup in successive games and got stuffed. And I don't just mean stuffed, I mean absolutely mullered. And I think that was the end of it, really, for Frank. And then he had some other games after that. He didn't do very well. And then they pulled the plug and he was sacked. Moshiri sacked him. And then after that, Everton really were in meltdown. The board took criticism. Bill Kenwright, even Graham Sharp, an ex-player who was on the board. Great player, Sharp. I mean, I don't know the ins and outs of Everton, so I'm not going to get involved in all the politics, but there was obviously unrest. And the club had been mismanaged, really, for probably a long time. So then the board didn't turn up for games. I don't know the ins and outs again, so I'm not getting involved in that. They stayed away. Everton fans still continue to back their team passionately. Home and away, more importantly away, everywhere, and Sean Dyche took over. Got a few, I think he won his first game. They got a few good results. Towards the end of that season. They thumped my team Brighton. I think it was 5-1. Yeah, 5-1 at Brighton's ground, the Amex. Wow, Brighton were flying, and then suddenly Everton come to the Amex and go bang. So good result for Everton and Sean Dyche. And again, they stayed up. I believe that a lot of the I believe again, like with Frank Lampard, there was periods where they hadn't won for like 3 months, or 14, 15 games, and one win in 15 games, or 2 wins in 20. That kind of sort of ratio, and the football was a little bit turgid, a bit direct, a bit negative, defensive, whatever. You know, but they stayed up, and Everton fans weren't really having him. I think with Lampard they forged a little bit of a better understanding with Frank Lampard, but with Sean Dyche, I think Dyche does talk a lot in press conferences and here and there in the media, and does waffle on. And he uses this expression, the noise, yeah, the noise. We got to talk about, since I've been to this club, it's all been about the noise. We got to keep changing it. I got to keep changing it. The noise, yeah, that kind of thing. my voice. So yeah, and then they've had a terrible, so they stayed up. He wheeled and dealed. There wasn't a lot of money in the summer, but he wheeled and dealed. Brought a few players in, a few players left. Had a stinking start. They lost to my team, Brighton. Trying to think now. Was it 3-1? 3-1. Brighton had a goal disallowed. 3-1 at Goodison. Brighton. Everton did play well in patches, but at the end, certainly in the second half, Brighton really were the better team. And then they went on a terrible run where they hadn't won in 6 games, and I think the 7th game, the 6th or 7th game, they beat Palace, and I think they got a draw. They got a draw at Leicester. Did they get a draw at Leicester? They might have got a draw at Leicester. Draw at Leicester, and so they're unbeaten in the last 2 games. So there's obviously speculation about Everton and their owners again. It's just a revolving door, goes round and round and round. The Feakin group, they look again most likely to buy if it all goes through. And again, good luck to Everton, and they've got a new stadium next year, and I wish them luck. But we'll see. So Sean Dyche is under pressure. He's got to get a run of results together, and if they do get taken over, I'm sure that the Feakin group will want their own person in, a bit like the Saudis. They wanted their own person in, and if there's a struggling manager, it'll be easy just to pull the plug, pull the chain, whatever. And unless Dyche really can persuade the Evertonians and the media that he's the man for the job for the next next couple of years, he's probably looking for his next job, really, in reality. Sad to say, but that's the brutal world of football. It is brutal. So there's a lot of managers under pressure, rightly. Some managers are under pressure, I think, which is very hard in hard circumstances. A bit like Southampton. I don't think they've been given much money. Russell Martin, the Ipswich guy. Forgotten his name now. He's doing okay. He's getting a few draws. He needs a few wins. And who's the other team that came up? Southampton, Ipswich. And Leicester. Yeah, Cooper. Cooper, who was at Forest, did a great job. Got them promoted, and then they stayed up 2 years running, consolidated, and they're doing quite well now under the Wolves manager, the ex-Wolves manager. You're doing very well. So mid-ish table, had a decent start. But yeah, Cooper went to Leicester in the summer. He's ex-Forest. There's a little bit of rivalry there, and they're not really having him. They're thinking, the guy who went to Chelsea did really well, won the league, get winning games, etc., etc. Even though there was a tiny little bit of criticism on the style of play at times last season, I believe, but they still went up with flying colours. So obviously he went to Chelsea. What can you do? He went to Chelsea in the summer, so they had to recruit a reasonably experienced manager, reasonably young, modern, a good coach, and Cooper, I believe, fits that criteria. He got Forest promoted, like I said, and he kept them up. So why can't he do the same with Leicester and then build in the coming seasons? I suppose that's the objective, isn't it? So yeah, it's a hard one. I just think there's a balance of getting a good manager, an old school manager that knows what he's doing and can coach. I think you've got a better coach, and one manager I think can create a club, a dynasty, a period of 4 or 5 years, 8 years, 10 years. Klopp, Wenger, Fergie, and they're just the modern ones. Obviously, I've mentioned all the older ones. Rather than just a manager here today, gone tomorrow, a year there, 2 years. He's fired, he's sacked. He resigns. Build something long lasting. But you can only do that if the manager is allowed to do his own job, in the way that he sees fit, rather than someone in his ear going, But on the other side of the coin, managers have got to be modern, they've got to be flexible, and they've got to be able to take in other voices, other new methods, new ideas. Got to be able to work with recruitment, transfer people, because managers' ears and eyes can't be everywhere. Not like the olden days where they used to rush up the M1 or the M6 in a car, looking at players, looking at scouting missions, and making little notes, and that's what they used to do. But they can't do that anymore. Players now are from all corners of the globe. They can't be everywhere. They rely on analysis. They rely on recruitment teams. They rely on sporting directors of football. The main guy, the guy under him, the guy under him, and the guy under him. This could be 15 people in that department alone. So they've got to be flexible as well. So you've got to have the balance of a manager having some backbone and give some manager some, time and the right environment to build how he sees fit. But they've also got to be flexible and work in the modern ways. Now, if you can marry the two, then you've got a bit like Pep Guardiola and Klopp, and who else? A winning formula, haven't you? So that's just my thoughts on management: the good, the bad, and the ugly. Thank you for watching, and please watch some more videos that I'll be putting out in the coming days. This is the Football Phoenix. Thank you ever so much. Please give me a like down below. Cheers. Thank you very much. And I'll see you next time. Bye.